America's like a novel. You can't just open it in the middle and know what this chapter means, who these characters are, where it fits into the larger narrative, unless you had read the earlier chapters. So let's talk about the beginnings of America. The beginning of this country was an extraordinary burst of light. It was an extraordinary burst of light, not only in terms of the political movement forward that it represented, but in terms of the moral movement forward, the spiritual movement forward. Because until the founding of this country, Western civilization was dominated by a monarchical and aristocratic paradigm. And within that paradigm, the established social order deems a few people entitled. And those few people were entitled to land, those few people were entitled to education, those few people were entitled to wealth, those few people were entitled to wealth creation, those few people were entitled to self-actualization. Those few people were entitled to dream. Those few people were entitled to make their dreams come true and to have a sense that their children would be able to do that too. With the founding of this country, that entire paradigm was repudiated. In this country, the idea was not that God gave power to the king and the queen to be shared only with their friends, the aristocracy, but that all men were created equal. All men were endowed by God with inalienable rights of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. And it wouldn't just be a small group that would run things, but rather there would be e pluribus unum, that there would be many, and out of that many there would be one. If the War for Independence had been won by the British, those people who signed that document would have been executed as traitors. But the irony, the historical irony, we all know well. We know that the same people that risked their lives to imbue those documents and the founding of this country with really not only were radically enlightened views 200 years ago, but which are still today radically enlightened views, we're aware how many of them were themselves slave owners. So it is built into our DNA. It was there from the beginning. We are not the first generation of Americans who have had to deal with the fact that America's gone off the rails. Because what has happened is we have subconsciously, once again, recreated the condition of aristocracy. You can call it a corporatocracy, you can call it a plutocracy, you can call it an oligarchy, I don't care what you call it. We have once again manifested a social system in which, for all intents and purposes, apparently just a few people are deemed entitled somehow to health care, entitled somehow to safety, entitled somehow to justice, entitled somehow to the goods of this country. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not the first generation to have to deal with this stuff, but let us not be the first generation to wimp out on doing the job it takes to get this country back on track.